for the newlyweds. Let's bring in our think tank tonight to get a little perspective on all of this. Joining us tonight, Jennifer Brandt, family law attorney in the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. Joseph Lowe out in Long Beach, California, joining us tonight. Great civil rights attorney, does some criminal defense as well. And Kimberly Bandeau with us, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, and former magistrate court judge. She's in Atlanta. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Jennifer Brandt, I want to start with you as a family law attorney. You have seen people at the moment when they are like at a crossroads in their relationship. Doomsday didn't come. It didn't happen, Jennifer. We all survived. I'm still on the air here in my basement. Do you think there's trouble in paradise? And maybe Lori Vallow is sending a message to Chad?
Absolutely. I definitely think so, Vinny. I think there is big trouble in paradise. And I think that Lori is trying to send a message to Chad and to others that she wants to distance herself from him. So I think that we're going to see less of Lori, more of Chad. And I think she's upset because there was no doomsday. And if she really believed it, then I really think that she's now worried that maybe Chad wasn't right about everything. And if she's involved in this, she wants to get as far away from him as possible.
Yeah, I'm glad Doomsday didn't come, by the way. I just want the record to reflect that. Joseph Lowe, how are you looking at this? Is this legal strategy? Is this like a personal vendetta? Is this a message? What is going on here?
Yes, good question. Eddie, this is a decision the lawyer would have made. Clearly, Lori is in no position to be able to figure out one way or the other whether she should be on TV or not. So why would he have made this decision? Well, think about it. Just look at the airtime that you and others have given her, and what is she wearing the whole time? You see her in handcuffs. You see her in a bright orange prison jumpsuit. You see her not looking too happy. And what the lawyer hopefully realizes, and probably did, is that if he keeps continuing to allow that to be her image, then what he is doing is he's imprinting that on all prospective or future jurors. You don't want your client seen that way. Lawyers go to great lengths to file motions to have their clients be allowed to show up in civilian clothes, even though they may be in custody. There's a whole thing called a dress-out order, so that happens. Why do they do that? Because people will visually see that, they will use prejudice or stereotype, and they'll stop listening or will affect the way they hear that particular witness, and this lawyer cannot afford to have that happen.
You know, speaking of dressing up, Kimberly, Chad Daybell got all dressed up. He and his attorney, I hope it was a coincidence, kind of wearing matching ties, but Chad was all dressed up. He's the one without the jacket. Do you think he's dressing up for prospective jurors, or do you think he was dressing up to try to impress Lori Vallow Daybell, who may have had access, if she showed up, to actually see him? What do you think's going on there?
No, I definitely think that's for the media, because he knows the world is watching this trial and everybody's paying attention to every single thing. So he wants to take the opportunity to look presentable and to look respectable and not like a murderer.
You know, the other thing that's happening right now is we've got 2 preliminary hearings. They're separate right now, the way they've been scheduled. And I don't know, Joseph Lowe, who gets the advantage here if, in fact, this is the way we proceed to trial? Let's say, for instance, we go through the preliminary process, and then when we set trial dates, there are 2 separate trials, one for each defendant.
Man, I should be asking you that question, Benny, because that is a prosecutorial strategy, and I know you were outstanding in what you did when you were practicing. However, from my experience, the person who's probably going to get the most advantage is going to be the person who goes second. And the reason for that is because they're going to get to hear the government or the prosecutor's case, and they're going to get to anticipate and maybe even come up with some strategy as a result. So the hearing and the ability to sit back and listen just gives them the opportunity to prepare.
Kimberly Bandeau, prosecutors, I got to think, want to try them together, because one thing as a prosecutor that I hated, and I'm sure you hated it too, was trying a case where the defense or the defendant can point to an empty chair and say, hey, it's not me, it's the other person that you keep hearing about that's not in court. They're the one that did it. I'm just sitting here. So I've got to think prosecutors are going to want to put these cases together at some point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I definitely think there's going to be a motion for joinder file, because you don't want to have to rehash these facts out twice and spend that kind of money to try the same case on the same facts, especially when everybody and everything is intertwined. It's definitely to the prosecutor's advantage to try them together, but as a defendant and a defense attorney, you do not want them together because you want to be able to point the finger at the other person and focus on the other person's culpability and not your client's.
And Jennifer, the other thing they're going to be able to do here is not only, if they're separate trials, point the finger at the empty chair, but they can point the finger at the casket, Uncle Alex Cox. Because, I mean, anyone who's followed this, come on, let's be honest. He's the guy who's I think is ultimately responsible for the deaths of all these people.
Absolutely. We have all the cell phones. We have all the cell phone records that show him in the vicinity of the pet cemetery initially for a long period of time, and all the calls and messages. He seems to be the most suspicious. So it's easy to point the finger at him because he's no longer around. So yes, I definitely think they both will be pointing the finger at Alex Cox, who mysteriously disappeared like so many other people in this case. Mysteriously died, I should say. So that'll be the person that they're going to both look at, I think.
Joseph Lowe, there's another part here. Now, there are no murder charges yet, right? There's no statute of limitation on murder. I mean, we could potentially have these trials first before a potential murder trial down the road. And I'm wondering, is there any chance that Chad Daybell or Lori Vallow Daybell would get up on the witness stand to testify knowing that there's a potential for murder charges and that anything they say can and will be used against them either in that trial or a subsequent trial for murder?
Yes, I think it's a very good point. In fact, their lawyers will be working with their clients to find out just how presentable and how well they can testify, and will that put them at risk for a potential other charge. But what I guarantee you is definitely going on right now that you haven't heard about is that you have the prosecutor's office leaning on one person right now to testify against the other. And what I think you're likely going to see is, as a result, that one of these two is going to be persuaded and, if in some way, if you will, bargained with, which is a form of money, I guess, to testify against the other one. And if that happens, well, man, it's a whole new case now. So watch for that, and let's see what happens there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a game changer. That is an absolute game changer. And the honeymoon would certainly be over at that point, Jennifer Brandt. All right, when we come back,